Hi, I'm Kevin Kaminsky, and I'm going to take you through sequencing an application with Microsoft Application Virtualization 5.0. Because Microsoft Application Virtualization is now part of Windows 10 Anniversary Edition in the Enterprise SKU, the client is automatically a part of the operating system. The installation for the sequencer has changed somewhat. So what we need to do is download and install the Windows 10 1607 ADK. I've taken the liberty of downloading the binaries and putting them on my machine to speed up the install. So first what I'm going to do is launch the ADK setup itself. It's going to specify a program install path, which I don't need to change. I'm going to click Next. I don't necessarily need to submit information regarding my experience to Microsoft, though they would prefer that you do. So I'm going to leave it at the default and click Next. And of course, there's a license agreement, which I will accept. As you can see, there's quite a few things in the Windows 10 ADK, and all I am looking for is the Microsoft Application Virtualization Sequencer. So what I'm going to do is actually go and deselect all the other components of the ADK, as I will not be needing them to sequence applications. The UAC prompt should appear, and I'm going to click Yes, and it will begin the installation of the sequencer. There's no reboot needed at the end of the installation, so when I click Close, I'm actually ready to sequence applications. So what I'm going to do is go to my Start menu and launch the Application Virtualization Sequencer. You should get a UAC prompt. I'm going to click Yes. And I'm going to start by creating a new virtual application package. Now there's different options for creating a package. One of them is to create a package, which is the default, or create a package using the package accelerator. The package accelerator is not used so often anymore. It is a way you can actually share how your packages have been built with other people by providing the description of the package binaries and registry keys, and then somebody can take that package accelerator, apply it against the source media of the application, and then build a package themselves. So sticking to a simple install, I'm just going to click Next and create a package. And as you can see, I've actually violated many best practices, and I've done this on purpose just so you can see that for each of the best practices I can double click a best practice. It's going to give me a description of the warning, and at the pane below it's going to give me a suggestion as to how I should fix it. And in this case, I should stop the Windows Defender service, and this error should go away when I click refresh to check for more errors. So that being said, I can go through each of these issues and remediate them, and this will make sure that I have the best practice for sequencing applications with application virtualization. Now, one thing you might be wondering is why would I turn off my antivirus? And that's something that's debatable, because I know corporate security can often have an issue with domain-joined machines not running antivirus. In some cases, antivirus may interfere with application virtualization, but for the most part, it shouldn't. And so I actually go against the Microsoft recommendation and leave Windows Defender turned on, or whatever antivirus is installed on the machine. You have on the next page a selection of options you can use to select what type of package you want to create. These options are more workflows to try and sequence or package the application the best way possible, depending on what type of application it is, whether it's a add-on plugin or middleware. It'll guide you through a process to package that application. If you know what you're doing, you don't necessarily need to use all these different workflows. And so most of the advanced sequencers I know, they will just use the top and default option of standard application. So we're going to click Next and continue with the standard application. The next screen gives you a few more options. Whether or not you want to specify the installer for the application or do a custom installation. I would suggest that you do a custom installation for most cases, though if you're getting used to AppV for the first time, you might want to use the top option. The reality is there's not much difference. The idea of having this top option here is just really to make sure that you're specifying the installer for the application and that it launches when you're ready to monitor the application install. So I'm going to just do a custom installation and click Next. And I'm going to give this a simple package name. So I'm just going to call it WinRAR. And I'm going to click Next. And the next thing it's going to do is it's going to get ready to watch the application and capture the registry keys and the files that get laid down by the application as it installs. So now that I'm on this page, I can actually go to my WinRAR installer and run through a typical install. So I'm going to say yes to my UAC prompt, leave the default install path, click Install, let it install, and then click OK. And then I'm going to click Done. And now WinRAR is installed. So I'm going to close that window. I'm going to select I am finished installing on the bottom. And then I'm going to click Next. Now, best practice is to make sure that I launch every application at least once. And this is what this screen is for. And I'm really more concerned with the primary application here rather than the help files. So I'm going to just only select the WinRAR application and click Run Selected. It's going to launch WinRAR. Now, this might be the time you give it a license key, or you disable splash screens if you can. And so I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to close the application. Now, the Microsoft best practice is really to launch every application 3 times. I think it's a little bit of overkill, so what you might want to consider doing is launching it at least twice. And the idea here is just to make sure the application is coming up and looking the way you want it to look. And so I'm going to close the application down, and I'm going to click Next, and it's going to collect those changes that were made to the application. Now you notice that it can produce output in terms of what it thinks might be issues with the application. So if I open up this issue, it's just letting me know that it's excluded some files from the application. And so what that means is that like many packaging applications, the AppV sequencer is taking a default registry and file exclusion list and preventing that data from going into the package. And normally this is stuff you don't care about, like your Internet Explorer history, cookies, temp files. And as you can see, this is basically what's in there, and it's more of a informational message than a message that you have to put a lot of thought around. It is good to review it, but not many applications need you to modify the exclusion list. So what I'll do now is click Next, and what I can do at this point is I can customize the application further, but we typically don't go through these customizations. So I'm going to select Customize just so you see what these customizations are and why we don't usually use them. So I click Customize, I click Next. What I can do is relaunch the application, and what this does is it defines how much of the application actually has to be present on the machine for the application to launch, and it tries to divide this into 4K chunks of the executable and DLL files and other files that are used by the application. And this is helpful with slow networks, but this was sort of like a leftover of the old Softricity days where Microsoft bought the Softricity SoftGrid product, and networks were a lot slower. You know, you had 10 to 100 megabit networks to the desktop, and this did help, but nowadays we typically just ignore this configuration item. And so what I'm going to do is just check the checkbox down here to require that the application is fully downloaded, and click Next. And this page as well, there's a lot of debate over this. So this page doesn't set the application compatibility of your application per se. What it does is it actually defines which operating systems this package is allowed to run on. And this can be somewhat helpful, but I find it's better to let the electronic software delivery mechanism deal with this rather than embedding it in the package, because as your packages get older and you introduce new operating systems into your environment, you sometimes have to go back and edit this information, and it becomes a little bit onerous depending on how many applications you have packaged. Say you're a larger environment, I've seen, larger environments have north of 1,000 application virtualization packages, and tweaking these settings can be a lot of effort. So we usually just allow this package to be run on every operating system by leaving it in this default radio button configuration. So I'm going to click Next, and it's going to default to saving the package on my desktop, which is just fine by me. So I'm going to click Create at the bottom here, and it's going to create the virtual application package. At the end of this, there is a reminder of all the potential issues that were encountered packaging this application. In this case, none of these are terribly serious. It's just that I've mainly violated some best practices. So I can click Close, and if I go to the WinRAR folder on my desktop, you will see that I actually have an AppV5 package. The report XML is a file that contains all the different information that we saw at the last stage, which ended up having the different errors that we encountered. The AppV file is the actual AppV package itself, which is actually a zip64 archive, though I highly recommend that you don't edit it manually. The MSI is not the actual package. It's more of a wrapper for certain software deployment scenarios, so that if it doesn't natively understand the AppV package format, the MSI can be used to assist the software deployment engine in deploying the AppV package. The deployment configuration file and the user configuration file we'll look at in more detail later, but essentially this contains a lot of information about how the application is installed on the machine, from everything from shortcuts to file type associations to exposed COM entries. There's a lot you can configure with this, and we'll dive into this more deeply later when we go into editing and some advanced scenarios with AppV packages. So for now, you've seen the basics around how you can package an application with application virtualization using the sequencer, and I hope you could see that it's very similar to packaging an application in a more traditional setup capture type route that many MSI and legacy EXE software packaging solutions package applications into software installers. Thank you for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Look for more episodes on this YouTube channel later, and in the meantime, check out my Twitter feed at @kkaminsk. Also, I have a blog, kkaminsk.blogspot.ca. I'm also on LinkedIn under Kevin Kaminski or linkedin.com in kkaminsk, and kkaminsk.wordpress.com.